Welcome to the Honest Media. Today is Thursday, November 16th, 2017. And if you are a conservative who follows any form of media at all, you know that one Roy Moore in Alabama is not having a very good time this week. In this episode, we're going to talk about the people behind the accusations, specifically Gloria Allred, the lawyer who just keeps popping up whenever there is a sex scandal, be it Republican, Democrat, or otherwise. Later on, we're going to talk about Pope Francis, who says that climate change skepticism is perverse, yet apparently he does not care about the sex scandals or other perverse scandals that happen in the Vatican City. Later on, we're going to talk about an update with President Trump's poll numbers, specifically among his supporters. But first, I think we need to talk about Roy Moore. And of course, I am joined by Craig Chrysler, who rarely puts much faith in these accusations, whether they are made against Trump or Roy Moore. Or I think you're even a little bit skeptical when it's on the liberal side, am I right?
Yeah, to say the least.
And tell us a little bit about why, just on face value, you don't always believe these accusations.
Well, 90% of the time they turn out not to be true, first of all. And it's just a bunch of feminists that ran out of stuff to talk about, so now they just make stuff up, trying to demonize men in any way possible.
Well, and of course, we want to be the real people who are coming forward who have been abused, who have been assaulted. That's horrible. We should all feel bad. But you bring up something about they end up never being proven, or they are done by people who are of suspect character.
Yeah.
And if you look at this character behind these lawsuits, Gloria Allred like the communist flag. Gloria Allred has a history of coming up wherever these accusations live. And almost always she makes the accusation. It's a media thing for weeks. And then the candidate either win or lose, the accusations all go away afterwards.
Yeah.
Whether they win or lose, it doesn't matter. And so Roy Moore's campaign...
Kind of like all the girls that...
Right, they disappear. They disappear. And of course, Roy Moore, this is one thing, and a lot of people say, well, it's the climate, it's the Spaceys, it's the Weinsteins, it's the Louis C.K.'s. But Roy Moore is not a young man. I mean, I had his Wikipedia page up just a minute ago.
60-something.
Yeah, he is 70.
Oh,
70 years old as of February. He is the former Chief Justice, of course, of Alabama. But he has been a public figure in the state of Alabama since 1977 in some way, shape, or form. In 77, he was just an assistant district attorney. But I mean, you can look up in a matter of 2 or 3 clicks who the assistant district attorney is of Wichita. And maybe it was different in 77. But so the Roy Moore campaign said to Gloria Allred, release the evidence so we can determine if there's any fraud or not. And this comes from Breitbart. And Allred released a statement saying that she and her client would only agree to the examination of the yearbook by an independent expert or experts, and after a U.S. Senate committee agreed to initiate a hearing into Moore's accusations. I mean, this is totally insane. And one thing that a lot of people have brought up, Craig, that I think maybe you've realized too, is that so many of the people coming after Moore are Republicans, at least in name.
Yeah.
But I want to focus on...
So, because he supposedly signed her yearbook, this is going to prove
well, there's
something.
There's a signature, and we can talk about that in a minute, because Gateway Pundit has
Heck,
some
I
reporting
signed
on
lots
that.
of yearbooks. Is that...
Well, but the signature looks nothing like his signature is the thing.
Does that mean I'm guilty of groping people now?
Well, the girl that he groped, she had a signature of his, and it doesn't look anything like any of his other signatures, including those from around the time. So a lot of people are saying now, why is he signing his signature differently only when talking to his rape victim when he's signing it this other way? But back to Allred, because I want to take us back in the way, way back machine to October 20th of 2016. And this is from the LA Times. Gloria Allred's latest foray into political controversy, representing 2 Trump accusers. Wow, it's like this ride just never stops. It just keeps happening, year after year, almost to the same date. It's amazing. Donald Trump's campaign responded to the latest groping accusation on Thursday by attacking the attorney who brought the accuser and a prior one into the public eye. Discredited political operative Gloria Allred and another coordinated publicity-seeking attack with the Clinton campaign will stop at nothing to smear Mr. Trump. Doesn't this all just sound a little bit familiar to you? I mean, literally, the same exact trick, like a year and a month later, and somehow it's working. And I don't know, I don't know Roy Moore. I don't know if he has the star power that Trump does. But these are some of the people who Gloria Allred, like the communist flag, has destroyed in the past. Herman Cain in 2012 GOP candidate. Allegations of sexual harassment and adultery swirled around Cain.
Mr. 999.
Went away. It went away, though. The pizza man is cleared.
Yeah.
All he had to do was drop out, and then all of a sudden all the accusations went away. Nothing ever came from it. Nobody ever heard from it. Okay, and then the next one, Anthony Weiner. She found a way that she could get some publicity out of this. During his first sexting scandal when Weiner was in Congress, several women said he sent them inappropriate messages after he inadvertently tweeted a picture of his crotch. One was former porn star Ginger Lee, who was represented by Allred. The attorney read from Weiner's messages at a 2011 news conference. Lee said the congressman asked her to lie about their relationship, and this is what kind of provoked him to resign. But again, I want to point out, no allegations proved, even about that disgusting man. And it goes on. Bob Filner, Democratic mayor of San Diego in 2013. Meg Whitman, 2010 Republican candidate for governor of California. Anytime somebody that she doesn't like starts to get a little bit of traction, Allred comes out of nowhere. She also called for Trump, you remember this, to release the unaired footage from The Apprentice, because allegedly there was footage of Trump using the N-word and molesting women in there. I mean, it's totally nuts, this woman. And that she is still being taken seriously a year later, same exact song and dance.
I'm wondering who funds her.
Well, that would be good to know, wouldn't it? I'm sure that there is something.
I wonder if it's somebody by the name Soros behind her, quite possibly.
Or some weird billionaire name, but it's just totally nuts. I mean, this is the state of political affairs in the United States. And in the next segment, I want to talk about how the left is using this to destroy conservatives, because they are sacrificing their Hollywood icons. So nothing more than an accusation will destroy them. And they're using it to then go and destroy Republicans. We've got to take a minute off, but you're watching The Honest Media with Tom Papper and Craig Chrysler. We'll be right back after this short break. Stay tuned. Welcome back to The Honest Media. We're talking about Roy Moore and the infamous lawyer who goes after any conservative, any decent human being who starts to get a little bit of political traction. We're talking about Gloria Allred, just like the communist flag. And one thing that I want to bring up is, I have no personal, I don't know much about Moore because I live in Kansas. I don't live in Alabama. I think it's ridiculous that the media can trick the entire country into caring about a race that, in the scheme of things, isn't that important. And that's all part of this, because Roy Moore, he'll be in the Senate, which is a good, important thing. The Republicans need to have control of the Senate. But relatively unimportant in the scope of what's happening with the world. We have a president who is confronting North Korea, looking at them in the eye and calling them names on Twitter. We have all of these things happening in the world, and yet everybody has to be concerned about Roy Moore in Alabama. And it's all a trick. And Craig, let me ask you if you've noticed this, because it seemed very strange to me that the media, the leftist media, was going along with the destruction of all of these major Hollywood players. You have Kevin Spacey, not a fan of Trump. You have George Takei, who now has been accused of date raping a model in the 1980s. Vociferous anti-Trump critic. The man cannot shut up on Twitter and Facebook. He actually blamed his sexual abuse allegations on Russian bots. Real story. George Takei did that. But the list goes on. I mean, all of these different people. Harvey Weinstein, big supporter of the Clintons and the Obamas. All of a sudden, Hollywood turns on him. And the media has been so ready just to turn on these people. I think it's so that they can smear, it's come to the point where an allegation is guilt.
Yeah, well, look, Bill O'Reilly.
Bill O'Reilly, that's right. This has been coming, but I mean, it's never before happened in Hollywood, which everybody knew that this stuff happened in Hollywood. It's just they've never had to face consequences for their actions.
The movie Eyes Wide Shut is based on Washington, D.C. and Hollywood executives.
And in a minute, we're going to get to some new information that's come out about what's happening in Hollywood. But it's gotten I think that Hollywood, the left, this creature, this Soros creation that's out there, that we all know is out there, that we like to pretend it doesn't really exist. But I think that they are willingly sacrificing their Hollywood mouthpieces because they know that they're a dime a dozen. They can raise another one. They can grab another one and have them be there instantly. So they're sacrificing their Hollywood mouthpieces so they can go after the Roy Moores of the world, and they can go after probably the Ron Estises of the world. And all they have to do is get a few accusers. They get Gloria Allred, just like the communist flag, and they get out there and they make their accusations, and then there you go. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter whether they're guilty. It doesn't matter whether this cheapens rape accusations for real victims. All that matters is the guy's going to lose the election.
Yeah, well, this is what it looks like when you have no policies to run on or anything at all, so you just have to make stuff up about people.
That's the thing. I mean, has anybody ever heard? I don't know who Roy Moore's opponent is. I have no idea.
I don't.
But there is a poll out today that says that his opponent, I don't know the name. I could look it up. I would have to look up the name. But there is a poll out yesterday or today, this morning, that says that his opponent, this no-name individual up 12 points in the state of Alabama.
Well, yeah.
Now that's another, it's a poll, so I don't know how much faith I really put in that.
Yeah.
But up 12 points. That's all you have to do. But luckily, conservatives are fighting back, and we're getting a little bit of pushback from some unlikely sources. The Gateway pundit reports that Wolf Blitzer, of all people, one of the Cuck News Network's talking heads. Wolf Blitzer repeatedly asked Gloria Allred if the yearbook signature, again, we talked about this earlier, the yearbook goes back to the victim and the signatures don't match. He maintains that it's proof that she is
This was way back in, 1977?
1977.
Who cares? I mean, God.
Well, I mean, if he's a rapist, I hate the guy. But the thing is...
She's not even alleging she raped him. Said she was
attempted rape.
She was in his car and he touched her.
Well, and now there's
what are you doing in a guy's car?
But the fact
Seriously.
of it is, I mean, it cheapens real rape victims that we have to sit here and do this. And the Gloria Allred, every time there's blood in the water, like a shark, she's there to make these phony accusations.
Supposedly a 17-year-old waitress in a 30-year-old guy's car. Right. What are you in the car to do?
That's a good point. Just giving him a ride home. But this is just a little bit. Let's see if I can pull it up here, because the exchange was actually fairly interesting. And we've got the transcript courtesy of Big League Politics. It looks like, well, all I'm saying is we will permit an independent examiner of the writing. We will allow all of this to be asked and answered at the hearing. Again, she's demanding, who ever heard of such a thing? The Congress is doing a hearing over rape accusations that are 40 years old. Whoever heard of such a thing? Rape accusations. Congress is getting involved. That's not how this works.
This is like when Congress investigated baseball. It's
right?
The stupidest waste of time they could possibly do.
Meanwhile, we have a tax plan that nobody knows what's happening. Yeah. We have Obamacare, where they're just pretending that they didn't campaign on repealing it. We have all these hostile nations in the world who would love nothing but to see us fall to some kind of nonsense in Alabama. Congress is going to waste time talking about 40-year-old sexual abuse allegations. That's insane. But so Blitzer continued, and again, this is like shocking coming from this of all sources. But that's not a flat-out denial, Gloria, Blitzer added. And she then goes, well, all I'm saying, we're not denying, we're not admitting, we're not addressing, we will not be distracted. And I think she's right, because whatever she just said, she's not denying that it never happened. She's not admitting, and this... She's just covering her butt here, but in a way, this is the perfect nothing statement that exemplifies the state of this little phony...
This is all Democrats have left, is to just make up rape allegations
Pretty much.
because they have nothing they stand on anymore.
But the thing is, I mean, I wonder if this is not like a last-ditch, very desperate effort, because it's going to backfire on them. I mean, it is.
Oh, it always does.
Well, that's true. It
Yeah.
always does. And the fact that they are sacrificing...
Like Hillary and the Russian hacking when
Right.
she was the one in bed with the Russians the whole time.
Well, exactly, uranium one. But I mean, if you just look at how desperate they must be to really be getting rid of all of their Hollywood icons, the people who have the young people captivated. You know, you can't...
Well, and part of that's due to social media, too. You can't hide it anymore.
That's true.
Yeah.
But the fact that these people are going down and they're willing to let it happen, and in the next segment, we're going to talk about who on the left is going down as a result of this. Because guess what? If you want to start talking about sexual harassment and sexual abuse allegations on the Hill, well, it's going to be an interesting conversation. We've got to take a moment off. You're watching The Honest Media. We'll be back in just a minute. Welcome back to The Honest Media. I'm Tom Pappert, of course, joined again by Craig Chrysler. We've been talking about Roy Moore, and we're going to finish up in these next few minutes. But actually, I want to kind of branch out from Roy Moore. I want to talk about, a new article that's come out of a website. It was featured on InfoWars, but it's endoftheamericandream.com is the website. The title of the piece, the headline is, "Another Reason to Drain the Swamp. Sexual harassment is rampant on the halls of Congress," which a large part of me, Craig, wants to say, duh.
Yeah.
Is this news to anybody? I mean, some of the stories I've heard are just unbelievable. Congressmen cheating on their wives with 18-year-old girls. All of their staff is basically just a harem. I mean, I've heard some stories.
That's pretty much the norm.
Yeah.
There's an old saying, like in a pond, politics is like a pond, scum always rises to the top. So
there you go. That's exactly right. And now CNN, this comes from, like I said, End of the American Dream, and they've got kind of an amalgamation of evidence here. But so CNN spoke with more than 50 lawmakers, current and former Hill aides, and political veterans who have all worked in Congress, and the majority of whom spoke anonymously, and with only a few exceptions, every last person said they have personally experienced sexual harassment in Washington or know of others who have. And a lot of these are Democrats. I mean, that's the thing. You know, the Democrats are trying as hard as they can to say this is now a Republican issue because of Roy Moore, but a lot of these people are Democrats.
Yeah. Well, also in 2017, just saying hi to a female is sexual harassment.
That's also fairly. And don't you dare hold a door.
Oh, I don't hold the doors. I shut it on them now.
Let them smack him in the face. But I mean, and it just goes on. There's about $15 million that have been paid out by just the House of Representatives on behalf of the harassers in the last 10 to 15 years. That's according to Representative Jackie Spear, and she's from California. But so it raises the question, you know, and like we've talked about a minute ago, it's come to the point, thanks to the media, thanks to the sensationalism, where the mere accusation of impropriety, the mere accusation of infidelity, the mere accusation of harassment is tantamount to it actually happening. All you have to get is a person to say, he groped me, and you might as well have a video that counts.
Or we could have videos and pictures of people like Joe Biden.
That's right.
Yeah.
Creepy Joe. You can find dozens of these
drunk
videos.
Joe Biden.
And another Democrat going down today, Senator Al Franken. So we have an accusation here that I'm just going to share with you. I'll read a little bit of it. That's it's from 790 KABC, which is a news talk radio station out of where is it from? I had it earlier, but it's an article. It was written entirely by a woman named Leanne Tweeden. And it's about her experience with one Senator Al Franken. In December of 2006, I embarked in my 9th USO tour to entertain our troops. Of course, everybody knows what the USO does. They go travel to where the troops are stationed. They entertain. It's great. Great time. Her father served in Vietnam with her then boyfriend, then husband Chris, who was a pilot in the Air Force. So she was bringing a little piece of home to service members stationed far away. It was something that was her passion and her privilege. She says also on the big trip were country music artists Daryl Worley, Mark Wills, Kenny Thomas, and some cheerleaders from the Dallas Cowboys. The headliner was then comedian and now Senator Al Franken. Franken had written some skits on the show and brought some props and costumes to go along with them. And like many USO shows before and since, the skits were full of sexual innuendo geared toward a young male audience.
Oh, no.
Yeah.
That's illegal now.
That's right. Yeah. Well, I wonder what they would do nowadays about the transgendered members of the in the military.
Yeah.
I mean, you know, you can't discriminate against them. So we have to get Caitlyn Jenner to the USO. That has to be a new thing.
Mm-hmm.
But she goes on
hopefully in a war zone.
There we go. But what she goes on to describe is actually kind of like this is the actual sexual assault allegations that I want to hear about. Not somebody was in a truck with somebody 40 years ago and it felt weird.
Yeah.
This is the real thing that you want to hear about. She goes on, when I saw the script, Franken had written a moment when his character comes at me for a kiss. I suspected what he was after, but I figured I could turn my head at the last minute or put my hand over his mouth to get more laughs from the crowd. On the day before the show, Franken and I were alone backstage, going over our lines one last time. He said to me, "We need to rehearse the kiss." I laughed and ignored him. Then he said it again. I said something like, "Relax, Al, this isn't SNL. We don't need to rehearse the kiss." He continued to insist, and I was beginning to get uncomfortable. He repeated that actors really need to rehearse everything, and that we must practice the kiss. I said okay, so he would stop badgering me. We did the line leading up to the kiss, and then he came at me, put his hand on the back of my head, mashed his lips against mine, and aggressively stuck his tongue in my mouth. I immediately pushed him away with both my hands against his chest and told him if he ever did that to me again, I wouldn't be so nice about it the next time. I walked away. All I could think about was getting to the bathroom as fast as possible to rinse the taste of him out of my mouth. And then she goes on to say that she went on like a professional. She did the skit. She didn't want to complain. She was in a war zone. She was halfway across the world. She didn't want to be a big deal. So I asked, you know, if we are going to say the mere accusation is tantamount to
well,
doing
that's it. He's fired.
Then
He's
he
fired
needs to step down.
For kissing a woman.
He needs to be called on to step down. People are calling on Roy Moore to drop out of the race. Al Franken needs to step down.
It's now illegal to kiss women, Tom.
Well, regardless, you shouldn't.
You can only kiss trannies.
But you shouldn't go up to a woman and just assault her with your mouth.
Yeah.
That's a disgusting picture right there. But
especially with that guy, yeah.
Oh yeah, just the mental picture, and she is not an ugly-looking woman. I feel so bad for just to be, but it's unbelievable the fact that nobody is. Where are the calls for him to step down? He needs to step down. He needs to get out of the Senate. He needs to go retire. He needs to publicly apologize. He needs to do it on Twitter because that's what they do nowadays. You know, where are the calls for him to step down? If Roy Moore has to step down, then Senator Al Franken needs to step down, and that's just all there is to it. Otherwise, as we all know is really the case, the left and the cuck-servatives are really just being a bunch of hypocritical idiots. So when we've got to take another break, but when we come back, we've got some new information out of the Vatican. Turns out the Pope is alienating sane people yet again. So stay tuned. You're watching The Honest Media, and we'll be back in just a minute. Welcome back to The Honest Media. So we've been talking about some of the perversion that's happening in Hollywood, some of the perversion that's happening in the Hill in Washington. But let's talk about some of the perversion that happens in the Vatican City. And we're going to start by talking about the Cuck Pope, the Puck, if you will. Pope Francis recently said that climate change skepticism is perverse. Perverse. Whenever people question what a bunch of bought and paid for scientists believe, that is perverse. The Breitbart article reads, humanity is currently experiencing a climate emergency, Pope Francis said, while decrying denial of human-induced climate change as a perverse attitude that endangers all. We need a conversation that unites us all because the environmental challenge we are experiencing and its human roots affects us all, Francis said in a statement to the COP23 UN Climate Change Summit taking place this week in Germany. For perverse attitudes that obstruct the quest for concrete solutions to the problem of climate change, according to the Puck, range from the denial of the problem to indifference, nonchalant resignation, or blind trust in technical solutions. The perverse attitudes, Francis said, certainly do not help honest research and sincere and fruitful dialogue on building the future of our planet. Denial, indifference, resignation, blah, blah, blah. So,
doesn't this guy know that God controls the climate?
You're onto something.
I mean, Jesus.
That was good. But the fact is, okay, we could sit here for 2 hours and talk about the dozens of very...
This is the same guy that said we don't need walls and lives behind a giant
right.
wall. So.
Lives behind the massive wall where there's like a 3-hour wait. I've been to the Vatican City. That is one heck of a wall, man. You move like a snail's pace getting through that wall. But, I mean, we could sit here and we could talk about how full of holes climate change theory is.
And then when he said this was in Germany, it all made sense. I mean...
But the models, just the models for climate change. It's a model. You put whatever data into the model to get the data that comes out. So you can change the data.
Here's something that's surprising, but the climate changes every day, Tom.
That's very
constantly changing.
But you could go on and on and on and debunk climate change. But, he used a certain word, our communist globalist Pope. I'm glad I'm not Catholic. But he used a certain word. He said it was perverse. Perverse, like perverted, like nasty things involving children and minors and drugs. Almost like the Vatican City.
Yes.
It's amazing how these things happen. And this is just from a couple months ago, 5 months ago, back in June. You remember June? Do you have any recollection of June? Yeah. I don't know. It was so long ago.
Yeah, that was wild now.
Yeah, I don't know. Years almost. 5 months ago in the Vatican City, a top advisor for Pope Francis was charged with multiple historical sex crimes in his native Australia on Thursday, bringing a worldwide abuse scandal to the heart of the Vatican. Appointed Vatican economy minister by Francis, Cardinal George Pell is the highest-ranking church official to face such accusations. He asserted his innocence and said the pontiff had given him leave of absence to return to Australia to defend himself. So he makes it sound like the Puck is standing up for him.
Yeah, sounds like he had more boys to touch in Australia, probably.
Creepy people stand together, apparently.
Oh, yes.
And Pell, by the way, was handpicked by Puck Francis to sit on a panel of 9 cardinal advisors to give a greater voice to the church's global flock and the new broom he chose to reform the Vatican's opaque finances. But Pell, the former Archbishop of Melbourne and Sydney, has come under pressure from the Australian government. And this is child abuse, by the way. We're not talking, there's another scandal we'll talk about that.
Yeah, how many tens of thousands of cases are all these top guys involved in?
And
now?
what happens? Archbishop of Sydney and Melbourne, massive area. They typically move him around. The priest gets caught, you move him over here. He gets caught here, you move him over here. But this is beyond that. This is, all right, priest, you've been caught. Come to the Vatican City. Come to the source.
Yeah, where you're safe.
Yeah.
With all of the other weirdo pedos in there.
Exactly. But by the way, this isn't perverted. The Pope didn't call this guy perverted. He didn't call the accusations perverted.
It's because it's standard practice at the Vatican, more than likely.
Well, but
just like in politics, scum rises to the top.
But Craig, you know what? It hit me. Pell, this cardinal, he never criticized global warming. He never criticized climate change. He's not a pervert. He is part of the solution to the problems that face this world.
Yes.
Child pedophilia. and global warming. And by the way, the victims were furious about this because, again, these are children. These are children who have been accusing this man of hurting them in heinous ways, and now the Pope is standing up for this guy. It's unbelievable. Whoever thought we would see this in the world?
I did. The last Pope got kicked out for stuff like this.
Well, that's true.
And
That's
covering
true.
up for...
But
he took the fall for like 70 guys that were abusing children.
But the last Pope didn't in one day say global warming is people who criticize global warming is perverted, and on the other day say, by the way, I really like those pets. I mean, it's insane. Just the hypocrisy. By the way, people close to this say that it's going to get worse unless the Pope engineers systemic change.
We need a Pope like the HBO show had. That Pope.
There you go. But this is not the only, you could say I'm cherry picking, right? But anybody who knows the Catholic Church knows that this isn't the first scandal. They know it's not even the only scandal in recent years. From 2015, I've got an article from The Guardian. How a cardinal disgraced in Boston child abuse scandal found a Vatican haven.
Yeah.
We've got another example.
Imagine that.
We've got another example. I'm beginning to see a pattern, Craig, of the Pope protecting child abusers.
Wow, it seemed that way, huh?
This guy gets a
Vatican
scandal.
City, a.k.a. Pedo City.
I think we're on to something here because this guy got kicked out. I mean, he's not welcome in Boston anymore.
Yeah.
And now he's found a home in the Vatican City. So you move them. They're already at the top of their game. You can't just move them to another parish down the road. They're already at the top. They're where they're going to be. Where do you go? You just take them to the Vatican. You just take them to the safe space for pedophiles.
A private city where they can't be arrested.
Yeah, exactly. And you can hide behind their walls.
That's
and
right.
criticize the rest of the world for not believing.
Looks like
in
walls
climate
work.
change. Walls do work. Walls work for pedophiles.
Oh, yes.
I wonder if they can work for normal people. I don't know. This might be a pedo-only perk, hiding behind walls.
It could be.
But I will read a little bit from it because it's serious. We have fun with it, but this is a serious and disgusting a piece of journalism here talking about the Pope essentially saying one side is perverted, global climate change critics are perverted. People who touch kids, that's just part of the religion, man. Come on in.
Yeah.
Because this is the one paragraph that I want to get at. Then we've got to go to break. In an editorial at the time, the Boston Globe, which had helped bring him down by exposing how the archdiocese had covered up years of sexual abuse by pedophile priests, said that the law had become the central figure. The former cardinal, or current cardinal, I suppose, had become the central figure in a scandal of criminal abuse, denial, payoff, and cover-up that resonates around the world. And again, one more time, this guy now hangs out with Pope Francis in the Vatican City. We've got to take a moment off. We're going to talk about some other stuff that's going on around the world, how modern art is going horribly, horribly awry, President Trump's poll numbers, and some surprising information to come out from the left surrounding the accusers of another very, very prominent leftist politician. We'll be right back. You're watching The Honest. Welcome back to The Honest Media. I'm Tom Pappert here with my host, Craig Chrysler. I wanted to talk about, we've talked about some serious topics. We always like to bring our program to a close on some more different kinds of notes. I want to talk about the overall just degradation of art and art throughout the public. Because we all know it's now been declassified. Craig and I joke about it, but it's completely honest and true, and I can pull it up and we can talk about it if we get that far. But the CIA had this brilliant idea during the Cold War, and we are still paying for it today. They thought that, the Soviets were doing some cool stuff culturally in the beginning, because turns out the Russians, this is before the famine, of course, but when they weren't starving, they were doing some cool stuff. And so the CIA said, well, let's do like a poison pill. Let's make art that's so bad that it ruins their art, and we will be funding it so arts can't fail.
That's a brilliant idea.
Exactly, exactly. And so the CIA funded a lot of what is called modern art.
Yeah, that's just complete crap.
Yes, where you get the lines.
Any classical beauty, as far as everywhere from buildings to paintings, everything just got washed away and just complete garbage.
And now modern art reigns
and people
supreme.
like this stuff.
I don't think they like it, Craig. I think that they are told to like it.
Well, they were told to like it, so
yeah,
now they like it.
It's like listening to Lorde. You're told to like her, so you like her. That's how it works. It's like Apple computers. You're told to like them, so you just do. But so now this is perhaps the most. Could we have possibly reached the bottom?
Let's
get this picture up on screen.
I've seen more bottom than this, but yeah.
This is, I'm sure you have, Craig. This is ketchup on canvas. Modern art sells for nearly $50 million. What? How? Who gets to do this? Who gets to do this? How? Why aren't we in this racket, Craig?
I don't know. I'm going to go buy some mustard after the show and a canvas.
And by the way, this happened at the same time that a rare Leonardo da Vinci painting was being sold, and people are more interested in ketchup on canvas.
$50 million for ketchup. I recently bought a painting drawn by a baboon.
That's right.
For $40.
For $40.
And it's way better than that.
It's true. I wish we could get a picture of that up, because it is legitimately 10 times better than ketchup on canvas.
And it was drawn by an animal, not some degenerate with a ketchup bottle.
With a ketchup. Yeah. And I will say that animal has way more talent. I mean, this is honestly, this is horrifying.
Tulu, the baboon.
That's right. You can look her up. This is just horrifying, though. I can't believe this. And I would pay more money for the baboon painting than for this abomination.
At least it's ketchup and not blood.
But we're not spirit cooking, at least.
Yes.
We're not spirit cooking.
Because they were selling them paintings as well.
That's true. But, I do want to say that it says something startling about the art world and our culture, that a baboon and a modern artist, indistinguishable.
Yeah, pretty much.
Lower primate and the premium species on the planet, they do about the same thing.
Yeah.
So I guess we can just read a little bit here. During an auction at Christie's in New York last night, the Da Vinci's 500-year-old Christ as Salvator Mundi ended up selling for a whopping $450 million, more than 4 times its estimated price. Now that one, yes, I can see that. Mm-hmm. That's very cool.
If you have ungodly amounts of money just to throw around.
And why wouldn't you buy a Da Vinci?
Exactly.
I would if I had $500 million. Why not?
Sitting around,
Yeah, put it above my bed. It'll be great. Mm-hmm. But another piece of art, appropriately titled Untitled, it's too much, Greg, was bought for $46,437,500.
I'd like to see the idiot that bought this.
Well, read on.
And
maybe
more
we'll get lucky.
Oh, okay.
But according to Christie's, the art is the largest example from Cy Twombly's legendary, oh, you're kidding, I didn't even get this far earlier, Bacchus series from the ancient Roman god of partying. How perfect for a degenerate in 2017. Mm-hmm. The ketchup on canvas is an example of neo-expressionism.
Oh, wow.
And was created in 2005, according to Tate Modern. The painting is supposed to symbolize, again, the Roman god of wine. How perfect. Let's get this painting up on screen again. How does this symbolize wine in any way? Do our viewers have any idea? Can you inform us on this? I am shocked.
Walking around drunk and spilled everywhere. That's about what it looks like.
Maybe. And maybe each, you see how there's little concentric circles. Maybe those are those glasses of wine that this person drunk while getting ready to paint this. I think that's what they symbolize.
They're probably drunk when they painted it.
I'm going to go ahead and say yes, that they definitely are. So this is the artist's. I just have nothing to say about this. Red is the color of wine, but also of blood. And these canvases encompass both the sensual pleasure and violent debauchery associated with the god. This contrast is echoed in the painting's combination. Let's make sure you've got this on screen while I read this. The painting's combination of euphoric loops that soar towards the vermilion floods of paint that ooze and cascade down the canvas. The unfurling gestures of these paintings were made like Henri Matisse's works in old age, with a brush affixed on the end of a pole, which lends them their vitality and scale. What did I just read? and do you
But it
see,
probably took longer to write that description than it did to paint that piece of crap.
do you see anything that corresponds to what I just read in this?
Oh, yeah.
I see red.
$50 million worth.
Can't believe it. This is the state of modern art in America, and I hope
The state of just Caligula-esque
debauchery and degeneracy. That's the real
Hollywood, pedo,
story. That's the
Pope pedos, every
you bring up a good point.
mine
This
$50
is,
million ketchup paintings.
this is a good. I wish that the person who bought the dang thing, I wish that they had something in here. But
More than likely, that person had so much money they just bought that and then threw it in the trash.
maybe they were drunk.
Oh, I guarantee they were drunk.
I don't know how that decision could possibly be made.
Drunk
sober.
and on other drugs, more than likely.
Well, it was New York City, so I
Yes.
suppose there may be something to that. So we've got a couple more things I want to talk about today. Again, we've got some interesting information about new, well, not new accusations, very old accusations, but a new. They're getting some new life, and also we're going to get to President Trump's poll numbers in our next and final segment. We'll be right back after the break. Welcome back to the Honest Media. So I told you that we have some interesting information about a familiar accusation. This one goes way, way, way back, though. Back further than you might have thought. Goes all the way back to President Bill Clinton, believe it or not. The article is titled, "Hell Freezes Over. Chelsea Handler tells Juanita Broaddrick she believes Bill Clinton raped her." And imagine if Chelsea Handler had believed that a year ago.
Yeah.
Oh, wow. During the actual
Imagine that.
campaign. It's
When it mattered.
yeah, it's amazing how these people and their what do you call it, and their principles only show up a year late.
Yeah.
But the tide is definitely turning on the Clintons. That's in the article, and I will agree with that because Handler is known for being an ultra left-wing feminist SJW type.
Just an overall
degenerate.
terrible person.
Yeah, horrible, disgusting. If you watch her stand-up comedy, I feel bad for you. But she's well known for what she is. And on Sunday,
Just a sad person.
right, that's definitely true. And so, but she got tricked into this. This kind of relates to our earlier coverage because Chelsea Handler is not the kind of person who does well with confronting her own hypocrisy, believe it or not. So. On Sunday, Handler took a swipe at Judge Roy Moore and tweeted, "Imagine being molested by an older man." Then that man denies ever doing it and then goes on to get elected to the United States Senate. What kind of message does that send to young girls everywhere and to all the men who abuse women? Juanita Broaddrick, who of course has accused Bill Clinton of rape, slammed Chelsea Handler and responded, "Yeah, Chelsea Handler, I can imagine. I was raped by the Arkansas Attorney General, who then became governor and president. And NBC held my interview, explaining the rape until after his impeachment hearing. But I'm sure you don't want to go there." And so that did not go well for Handler. It's very interesting. We talked about this backfiring on the left. I think maybe we've already got an example. They're going to say, oh, somebody accused Roy Moore. Well, that's definitely happened. But the 57,000 women who accused Bill Clinton? No, that didn't happen. That's fake news from the Russian bot hacking sites.
And actually had affairs inside the Oval Office.
Right. Yeah,
Proven.
but it's so unbelievable. But this guy's sexual escapades may not end where he says they do.
Oh, yeah.
But so she responded to Juanita Broaddrick Wednesday evening. Let a nice little healthy amount of time go there, I would say. But she replied, I'm sorry, I'm just seeing this. You are right, and I apologize to you for not knowing your story. Democrats, along with Republicans and the rest of the world's political parties, all need to do better with respect to firsthand accounts of victims.
How could she not know the story?
How could anybody? I mean,
it's like,
she's not 15.
Yeah.
I mean,
I've known the story for 20 years.
Exactly.
Yeah.
People lived through this story. It was on the news every night of the week. That was the beginning of cable news and Rush Limbaugh.
Oh, I just found out about you, Juanita Broderick.
I just found out. Hey, did you know?
I just found out about this Monica Lewinsky yesterday.
There's something about a blue dress. Whoever knew about this? Did you know about this? The 90s were crazy, man. I mean, it's like, how did she with a straight face?
That's how far we've came. Back in the 90s, it was okay to use cigars and other objects and in the presidential office, and
use
it's fine.
Somebody as your human humidor.
Now, if you kiss somebody 30 years ago, it's over for you.
Or sit in a car with them, and yeah, that's where we're at. But the difference is, I mean, clearly, and you know this, Craig, you know this as well as I do, Bill Clinton is on the left.
That's right.
Roy Moore is on the right. So you see, leftists stick together. They have a lovely collective mentality where they will stick together like glue. But then on the right, we don't have that.
Yeah.
We're individualists over here, and it ends up biting us on the butt. Or worse, we're individualists, but some of those on the right are collectivists, Mitch McConnell, so he sides right along with the leftists.
Yeah.
And that should be surprising to nobody. So as we wind down here, our final few minutes on this week's episode of The Honest Media, we have some new polling data done from Politico and Morning Consult, as reported in InfoWars, and it's got some interesting news that I think is good news, Craig. A new poll published again by Politico Morning Consult found that the vast majority of Americans who voted Trump for president would vote exactly the same way if elections were held again today, while fewer Hillary Clinton voters would stick with their candidate.
Who would vote for Hillary after everything
that came out in the last year of her whining and crying and hiding in the woods and drinking her way to happiness? And it's shocking. But 82% of Trump voters said they would do it again, no questions asked.
Which means it's probably 92%
because you get a phone call and they're like, "Hey, would you vote for Trump?" But and then only 78% of Hillary voters said that they would do that again, which is lower. It's 4% difference, but that's something. And considering the #resist movement, they would lead you to believe that it's 100% would vote for Hillary again. So the fact that it's flaking off big league, I say that's a good thing. By the way, 8% of Hillary voters said that they would not only not vote for Hillary, but that they would switch to President Trump.
There you go.
Very interesting. And by the way, the majority of Trump voters, over 75%, say that in 2020, no matter what, they're sticking with the president.
I'm going to vote for him twice.
You're going to vote for him twice? Yeah. Or you didn't tell me you were a Democrat, Craig. Are you?
Yeah, I'm using their strategies next time around.
You have 2 Social Security numbers, or are you?
I know some Mexican guys.
They could fix that up for you.
Yes, they
That's
can.
one of the unseen crimes of illegal immigration, and I think, frankly, that conservatives should do it too. Because
Why
it's
not?
only fair. As we talked about their collective mentality, we're going to get it too. And believe me, you don't want to see what happens when Republicans decide to cheat the system. I have a feeling it ends well for the left. Now, I just want to mention that this is the takeaway from the left at the end of the article from the Politico and the Morning Consult. Voters who support President Trump have a markedly sunnier outlook on their own financial situation than those who don't.
Oh, imagine that.
I just had, the conservative buying power meme is so real. The leftists don't have any money, or they have their daddy's money, and once that's gone, they're broke.
Yeah.
But conservative
So the people
voters.
making money like Trump.
Exactly. Who could have known that the guy promising tax cuts is the one that the people with the actual money.
The people on the welfare don't like him too much.
That's right. Who could have ever seen that one coming?
Imagine it.
So we've talked a lot this week, Craig, but one thing that we haven't got to, and we've got just a little bit of time left here, but one thing that we haven't talked about is the Asia trip. So I just want to ask you in our final closing minute, what was your favorite moment?
Seeing Trump with Duterte was probably one of the greatest things I've ever seen in my life.
Wasn't it? And the outfit, it's like you're
Yeah, what was that? I don't know what the shirt was about, but it was nice.
I don't know the name off the top of my head,
Yeah.
but it's like when your favorite character in your favorite game, it's like you unlock a new skin in Overwatch.
Yes.
It's amazing seeing him dressed up in traditional Filipino garb, and that indeed was epic. Our president of the Philippines, Rodrigo Duterte, meeting President
The guy
Trump.
that said he was going to kick America out of the
Right.
out of the country
Right.
and side with China before Trump got elected.
Trump comes in, all of a sudden the military
friends.
base can stay. They get along great. Very interesting changes in the United States. And I'd say, to leave our viewers with a positive note, it's a good indication that, as President Trump has said many, many times, America is back. So this has been The Honest Media. I'm Tom Pafford here with Craig Chrysler. We will be back next week, same time, same place.